Hi, I'm Matt from SpeakPrac, and welcome back to the Ultimate IELTS English Speaking course. In my other video, I shared with you the Topic Diamond framework, which is what I use to help me score a Band 9 in the official IELTS speaking test. Now, you might know the how in terms of answering part 2, but you might ask yourself, well, what are they going to actually ask me? Well, that truly is the next big question. Many students believe that the IELTS Speaking Part 2 topics and questions are a complete lottery, that you can't really prepare for them. But what if I told you that there actually are hidden patterns and categories of questions that those cue cards are likely to take? That's what helped me to score a Band 9. When I knew those patterns, I was able to feel much more confident. And I'd love to share that with you today. Before we get started, I want you to know that this video is part of the Ultimate IELTS English Speaking course. The entire course is free, and I've put everything, such as all the lessons, the resources, and everything else you need on the course hub page at speakprac.com/IELTS Speaking course. You can also see the link in the description and on screen. The topic blueprint, cracking the code of IELTS cue cards. Think of it like this. An architect doesn't design 100 different buildings from scratch. They use a handful of core blueprints. A blueprint for a house, a skyscraper, a school, and then they adapt the details. IELTS Speaking Part 2 is the same. The speaking examiners aren't creating wildly new topics every day. They're pulling from a set of predictable categories. Today, we're going to reveal that secret structure. I call it the topic blueprint. We've analyzed hundreds of recent and past IELTS Speaking Part 2 cue cards, and we found that over 90% of them fall into just about 8 core categories. These are the same categories you'll find organized in the SpeakPrac app, and they're the same categories that I use to practice for the IELTS speaking test myself. Understanding this blueprint is your ultimate shortcut. Because if you can talk confidently about one topic in a category, you can adapt that same core story and vocabulary for any other topic in that same category. It's about preparing smarter, not just harder. So let's break down the blueprint. Our first blueprint category is one you can absolutely guarantee you'll be prepared for. Blueprint category 1, a person. There's a high chance that you'll be asked to describe a person. This could be anyone, a family member, a friend, a teacher, or even a public figure. A recent IELTS Speaking Part 2 question that appeared was, describe a person you admire. You should say who this person is, how you know them, what qualities they have, and explain why you admire them so much. Remember that in my other video about IELTS Speaking Part 2, I talked about the Topic Diamond answer template that you could use to answer a Part 2 question effectively. With the Topic Diamond, you talk about 4 key points: the past, the present, the future, and your opinion. Can you see how the Topic Diamond can perfectly fit for this particular Part 2 question? Let's see what we can talk about. The past. Well, you can talk about how you met this person you admire or how you found out about them. The present, or a description. Well, you can talk about what they are like now, their qualities, such as are they kind, intelligent, or creative. The future. You can talk about how you hope to see them again or be like them in the future. And what about your opinion or your feelings? Well, you can talk about why you admire them and the impact they've had on you. You can see here that when you use the Topic Diamond framework, you're actually also answering all of the bullet points that's suggested in the cue card. You prepare one good story about a person you know well, and you're able to adapt it for a dozen different questions. Blueprint Category 2, a place. Next up are places. This could be your hometown, a city you've visited, a restaurant you like, or even a room in your house. A classic IELTS Speaking Part 2 topic in this category is describe a place you've visited that made a lasting impression on you. You should say where the place was, when you went there, what you did there, and explain why it made such an impression on you. Again, think of the topic diamond and how it can apply here. The lasting impression part is pure opinion and feelings. And you can talk about the history of the place, which is the past, what it's like now, the present, and if you plan to go back there, which is the future. Blueprint Category 3, an object. This category is about physical things. It might be a gift you received, a piece of technology you use, or something with sentimental value. Now, when I actually did my IELTS speaking test, part 2, I got a question about a piece of technology that I use, so I know that this can really apply here. Now, a very common cue card for this category is describe an object that is important to you. You should say what the object is, how you got it, what you use it for, and explain why it is so important to you. Maybe it's an old film camera from your grandfather, or whatever old object you can think of. Well, you can talk about when you received it, which is the past, how you use it for your photography hobby now, the present. Then you can talk about your plans to maybe display the photos, which is the future, and then you can discuss the connection it gives you to your family's history, and that's all about your feelings. Again, the topic diamond can apply to this blueprint category of objects. Blueprint Category 4, an event or experience. This is a big one. IELTS speaking examiners love asking about memories and life events. This could be a festival, a wedding you attended, a special trip, or a happy childhood memory. For example, a recent cue card asked students to describe a time when you felt very surprised. You should say what happened, when and where it was, who was with you, and explain why the experience was so surprising. This right here is a storytelling topic. You set the scene as you talk about the past. Describe the event itself as you talk about that present time. You can go into whether you'd like to experience that moment again in the future. And then you can focus on your feelings and the impact that moment had on you, which is your opinion and your feelings. Again, the topic diamond is so relevant here. Okay, we're halfway through the topic blueprint. I know this is a lot of information, but seeing these patterns for IELTS Speaking Part 2 is the key. All right, let's get back to it. Blueprint Category 5, a hobby or activity. This is another favorite for IELTS examiners because it lets you talk about your passions. This could be a sport you play, a creative hobby, or something you do to relax. Let's look at a typical IELTS Speaking Part 2 cue card for this category. Describe an outdoor activity you enjoy. You should say what the activity is, where you do it, who you usually do it with, and explain why you enjoy it so much. So whether it's hiking, cycling, or just reading in a park, you can talk about when you started, which is the past, what a typical session is like, and that's the description of that present moment. Then talk about a future trail or future session that you want to do. And here you're talking about the future. Next, talk about how it helps you to de-stress and connect with nature, or make you feel really positive. And that's where you talk about your opinion and your feelings. So as you can see, the topic diamond framework does it again. It can answer this type of cue card and many others. Blueprint category 6, media, a book, movie, or music. This category is all about culture and entertainment. You might be asked about your favorite book, a film that moved you, or a piece of music you love. A great example of this kind of cue card is this. Describe a movie that had a strong impact on you. You should say what the movie is, what the story is about, when you saw it, and explain why it had such an impact on you. This is a fantastic opportunity to show off your vocabulary for describing emotions and themes. You can start off by talking about the past and the decision that brought you to watch this movie. You can then talk about that present time when you were watching that movie, and you can describe the plot and the characters. Next, you can talk about whether you'd want to watch that movie again in the future or a movie like it in the same genre. Finally, and most importantly, you can then talk about the effect it had on your perspective. What opinions and feelings did you have as a result of watching that movie? Blueprint category 7, a decision or change. This category tests your ability to talk about abstract ideas and personal development. The IELTS speaking examiner wants to hear about a choice you made or a significant change in your life. A very common question here is this cue card. Describe a difficult decision you had to make. You should say what the decision was, when you had to make it, how you made the final decision, and explain what the result was. This is clearly a narrative question, and you can use your topic diamond framework to structure the story of the situation. Talk about what happened before the decision, which was the past. Then describe the moment of the decision and its immediate aftermath, which at that time was the present and the description of it. Then you can discuss how this decision shaped your life since, which is talking all about the future, and then share any opinions you have and feelings as a result of it. Blueprint category 8, your English journey. Okay, we have our 7 core blueprints: people, places, objects, events, activities, media, and decisions. And this covers almost everything. But I want to give you one more tool. This last one isn't just another category. Think of it as your secret weapon. Your safety net if your mind ever goes blank. I call it your universal topic, the English journey. Why do I call it the universal topic? Because the one experience that connects every single person watching this video is that you are on a journey to learn and master English. And here's the thing that you need to realize, and it's kind of like magic. That English journey that you're on and that we're all on is already filled with topics from our other 7 blueprints. Think about it like this. Your English journey is like a toolbox that contains smaller specific tools you can use anytime. Have you got a cue card about a person who helped you? Well, you can talk about your first inspiring English teacher. Have you been asked to describe a place? Well, what about the language school or library where you had your aha moment? Do you need to talk about an object that's useful? You could describe your favorite vocabulary notebook, a book that helped you, or even the SpeakPrac app you use to practice your speaking. If for IELTS Speaking Part 2, you're asked about an important event and your mind goes blank, well, why not talk about the first time you had a full conversation with a native English speaker? And a decision that changed your life? Think about the moment you decided to commit to taking the IELTS test to pursue your dreams. Can you see, my friends, that your own story of learning English is already a rich source of examples for almost any category? But here's the best part. Sometimes the IELTS speaking examiner knows from your conversation in part 1 that learning English is a huge part of your life right now. So it's not surprising that you might get a cue card that is directly about this experience, like, describe a challenge you faced while learning English. You should say what the challenge was, when you faced it, how you overcame it, and explain what you learned from the experience. This is a perfect opportunity. You're literally living this topic. You have so much to say. In terms of the challenge, talk about your past. Maybe you struggled with pronunciation, specifically the sound, that TH sound, which can be so annoying for non-native English speakers. It was frustrating, right? You can then talk about that present moment when you overcame that challenge. Well, maybe you started using apps to record your voice. You watched videos on mouth positions and you practiced with a speaking partner. Then you can talk about the future. You can share that your goal is to continue refining your English accent to sound even more natural. Then talk about what you learned. And here you're talking about your opinion and your feelings. You can say that this challenge taught you the importance of consistent, focused practice, and that with the right tools, any obstacle is surmountable. It made you a more resilient learner. So you can see, this isn't just an 8th topic. It's a core part of your story that you can adapt and use. It's personal, detailed, and something you can speak about with genuine passion and emotion. And what's so beautiful about your English journey is it's living proof that anyone can speak English, and that includes you. And I truly believe that. So there you have it, the topic blueprint, plus your universal secret weapon. 7 core categories that cover the vast majority of IELTS Speaking Part 2 questions, and 1 master strategy that connects them all and gives you a safety net, just in case your mind goes totally blank. The power of topic stacking. So why is this so powerful? It's because of a concept I call topic stacking. The goal is not to prepare 100 different answers for IELTS Speaking Part 2. The goal is to prepare 8 core stories. If you prepare a core story about a memorable trip to the mountains, which is a place category, did you know that you can use this story to answer questions about an outdoor activity, which is part of the hobby category, or a happy memory, which is potentially part of an event category? Boom! Same story. You just adjust the focus slightly. You've stacked your preparation. You've got one story that can answer multiple IELTS Speaking Part 2 cue cards. You see, this is the secret to walking into the IELTS Speaking test feeling prepared for anything without memorizing scripts. You're not memorizing answers, you're preparing your stories. And I think what can really help you feel more prepared for IELTS Speaking Part 2 is if you've done a lot of speaking practice in advance. If you've answered a variety of cue cards across various topics and categories for Part 2, then you've already described a lot of stories, potentially using the topic diamond framework, and you can reuse those stories that you've already said in your actual Part 2 speaking test. Your action plan. So let's recap the game plan. We've demystified the IELTS Speaking Part 2 topics by revealing the topic blueprint, the 8 core categories that cover almost every possible question. This allows you to practice smarter using topic stacking, where you prepare a single versatile story for each category, and you can actually use it across different cue cards that come your way. If you found this video helpful, there's more waiting for you at speakprac.com/IELTS Speaking course. There you'll find everything you need, including all the videos from the Ultimate IELTS English Speaking course. I've got resources and everything's for free. You now have the how, which is the topic diamond, and the what, which is the topic blueprint, and so you have the full strategy for IELTS Speaking Part 2. But there still is a big gap between knowing the plan and executing it, especially when that timer starts ticking for those 2 minutes. Now, it's one thing to just talk about IELTS Speaking Part 2, and it's another thing to actually do it. So, in my next video, we'll actually run through the thought process of how to prepare during that 1 minute prep time, and then how can you speak during those 2 minutes, step by step. The next video isn't just another training, it's an interactive practice workshop. You need to check it out so you can just start speaking right now for IELTS Speaking Part 2. Check it out.